Board Games Insider, where too many consonants meet too many vowels.
This is Board Games Insider, where publishers Ignacy, president of Portal Games, and Stephen Bonacore, president of Stronghold Games, discuss the hobby board game industry from the inside, providing you with news, advice, and a look behind the curtain into both of their companies. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Ignacy and Stephen.
Hello, Ignacy, Portal Games.
And this is Stephen Bonacore from Stronghold Games and Indie Games Studios. Ignacy, episode 105, which we're recording on the 6th of May, 2019. How's it going out there in Poland?
I'm recording from my headquarters, Ignacy headquarters. That means I'm recording from home, and the weather is beautiful, so it is this time of the year that we can discuss weather between Florida and Poland. So all is great. In like 3 or 4 hours, there is a very important football match that I'm going to watch. So basically, the mood is brilliant. How's your mood?
The mood is good. Well, it's the usual lovely weather in Florida, though it has started raining. This time of year we get a decent amount of rain, but that's okay because it cools things down, and that's fine.
Here's a news from Florida. My employee Luke has a flu, and I was mocking him all week long. How it is even possible to have a flu in Florida? Seriously.
Well, the flu and getting a cold does not mean it's cold, right? They're not really related per se.
No.
But it is kind of funny. You think it's about right when it gets really really cold outside that you get those kind of things, but
Correct.
You can also get it just by coming in contact with people who have it. So sorry to hear that Luke has got the flu. I hope he gets well soon. I did not know that. So poor guy.
Yep.
All right. So why don't you tell us what's happening over at Portal Games? What kind of things you got going on?
Yeah, the big news, Luke has a flu. We have other news. Also, Mystery Tales, of course, released. We are very happy with the first feedback about the expansion. So all the fans for Robinson Crusoe can now die on the deserted island trying to rescue Colonel Fawcett. So it's a huge release for me. I'm very proud. Already I have a fun because this is the first time that my developer Asia, we mentioned her a couple of times in our podcast, is on the box cover. So now all the reviewers have a new Polish name to learn how to pronounce. It already makes me fun and I laugh, and they have no clue how to pronounce her name. So information for everybody. She's not Joanna, she's Joanna, and she's not Kijanka because she is Kijanka. So good luck with this new Polish name to learn. Asia is amazing. She works in our development team, and you guys, you reviewers, will learn how to pronounce her name because she will put out amazing work in upcoming years. So this is one thing that happened. Mr. Tales released. We have a 51st State reprint and Allies expansion on pre-order right now. And actually, I think I know street date because I was writing today post.
I don't believe you.
It's May 23rd, I think. I think it's May 23rd because I was writing about this today on our Facebook. So this is new expansion for 51st State, our evergreen for many years. The first edition of the game was released like in 2010. So it's an old game, but still has a fan base. So we are very proud to put new content for this. And for what's happening at the company, of course, we are preparing for UK Game Expo. We have a pre-release of Roll and Write, Imperial Setters Roll and Write pre-release at UK Game Expo, and then the street date worldwide is 2 weeks after the UK Game Expo with the small modifier that is shipping and boat and adventures. And as for today, we have a small delay with the print run for America, for North America. So the print run hasn't yet reached our warehouse at Quartermaster Logistics. So Luke is all in panic. Greg is all in fury, and I'm just, okay guys, it's your job, I want it to happen. Just I don't want to hear about your adventures. Bring the title on May 23rd. So we will see. The street date is in June, I think. Yes, it's in June, but we are struggling a little bit with the shipping for North America. And the last piece of news from Portal Games, if you are guys using YouTube, my new show each Monday. Yes, I debuted this past Monday, which is yesterday. So now each Monday and each Tuesday we have a new program, new show on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see more of Ignacy and listen more to his awesome English every Monday, every Tuesday, more of Ignacy on your computer.
That's great. That is very good. I hope everybody tunes in for more Ignacy all the time. So over at Stronghold Games, following on the heels of the great Terraforming Mars Turmoil Kickstarter, which ended with such big numbers, coming up on May 22nd is Ignacy, the Shifting Sands edition. So this is a new version of Ignacy, which came out like over 10 years ago. It's been out of print. We got the rights. It's an amazing Euro game, and it has some wonderful mechanics where you are going down the Nile and taking actions based on where you land.
And you cannot go back.
You cannot go back.
Which is amazing choice, strategic choice. You can only move forward.
Right, and that gives you all of the choices that that really make it tough. Do I want to go for that thing I really need, or do I want to take maybe 2 actions before I get there? All kinds of things like that. So look for that. Beautiful artwork, all redone. We did some game development. It comes with the Shifting Sands mini expansion built in. You can play the game the original way and the new way. So watch out for that. It'll be coming out probably about a week after this podcast drops. You'll be able to start backing that. Currently, by the time this podcast drops, we'll have started the month-long store splash of Subtext. This is the Wolfgang Warsh game, which is a party game, a drawing game that you don't have to draw well. You just have to draw very cleverly and try to match up with the person who is the one who knows the actual clue that everyone is trying to guess. So that's Subtext by Wolfgang Warsh. We're going to be doing that month-long in stores across America, so check that out at your local game store, and it is already out.
I have a question. Can I? This Subtext, it is released, you have a right for North America, or can I find it in Europe as well?
We have North American rights on this one, plus other regions where they do not have the game, but you can find it from Pegasus, most likely, for the English and German market. Pegasus would be, I believe, your distributor.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Other games, so Subtext is out already, came out on March 1st by us, as well as Second Chance, the Uwe Rosenberg Flip and Write game. But on pre-order now on the Stronghold Games website, you can find Twice as Clever. That's the follow-up to Ganz schön clever by Wolfgang Warsh. That comes out on May 29th. You can pre-order it now. Free shipping in the US. Bricks is his next roll and write. So this guy continues to kill it with his roll and writes. And that comes out on June 12th. We mentioned last episode that we did Valparaiso, a medium weight Euro game. That is now on pre-order. That comes out on June 26th. Gorgeous Michael Menzel artwork in that game. So check out what that one looks like. And then looking a little more long-term, we have Dizzle on August 21st. We moved that one back a little bit. It's still tentative. Trying to get that one out of Europe now. Get it onto the boat. And then Encore, which is Nochmal in Germany. Actually the largest selling of all the roll and writes in Germany. Been out the longest. That comes out in September. And then I'm going to hint out a new edition of Diamonds will also be coming out in September. We'll talk about more.
Mike Fitzgerald.
What's that?
It's from Mike Fitzgerald, a new edition.
Mike Fitzgerald, a second edition of Diamonds. Just minor tweaks to the game system, new box, new art, and things like that. Sure. So that's what's happening here. Of course, we got crazy amounts of planning going on for conventions and stuff. We'll have some convention news toward the end of the show in our last segment. Meanwhile, let's go to the event deck.
The event deck. Here's the latest news from the board game industry.
And we have a first news that is so confusing for me, and it dropped when you, I think, were at the gathering of friends. Like this timing. So I hope you have more than I just found in the internet, because the news says Darrell Andrews no longer president of Maple Games. As far as I know, he was the founder of the company. So it is like a Steve Jackson thing that he founded Apple and then he was not working at Apple. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can think of it almost exactly like that. So Darrell was the founder of the company, and he was the president of the company as well. But he was not the owner of the company. At least he had people who gave him money, right? So those who were controlling the financing of the company elected to take back his contract for being the president of the company. So he's not longer that, he's still, of course, the founder of the company. That just doesn't magically go away. He still created the company and got financing to do so. Darryl put out a very short and very nice statement regarding him no longer being with the company. He was let go from Maple on Tuesday and will no longer serve as president. He's not showing any hard feelings. He is obviously very tied to the company still. And he's going to be doing other things. In fact, I did see, and I don't have it in the notes here, that he actually has started some other project, and I don't recall what it was. I'm not sure if you do. Did you see that one anyplace?
No.
It's a shame. It's obviously not good news, neither for Darryl or for the company. And that actually plays into the next piece of news that came out almost simultaneously.
Yep. It was almost the same day, yes.
The same day, and I cannot say if they're related or not. I don't necessarily believe that they were, but I'm almost sure that they weren't, because one is very external. Kickstarter suspended 2 games that were currently going on Kickstarter, one from Kollosal Games and one from Maple Games. Now, this brings into the bigger picture so Maple Games was funded by a third party. Kollosal Games is also funded by a third party. The same people who fund these companies also fund Matago Games. So it's sort of a conglomeration of multiple brands. At least,
correct.
I don't know that they didn't start that way, because these companies were started at different times. But the financiers of these three, at least these 3 companies, are all the same people or person. And I don't have 100% knowledge on all of the people who are funding the companies, but I know that they have similar backers. So what happened on Kickstarter? Kickstarter has suspended Hunt the Ravenger from Kollosal Games and Folding Space from Maple Games. Why did they do this? They cited several different reasons, but they were very vague. That they had outstanding projects that were not yet fulfilled. A lot of companies do that, of course. They run a project, and then, of course, they schedule that one for in the future for fulfillment. They run another project, and they schedule that one. So that's one reason. Failure or unwillingness to clearly communicate with backers is one of the other items it shows here. Outstanding fulfillment issues. There were all of these vague concepts that nobody, including myself, including Kollosal Games and Maple Games, really understood why they would suspend it. So what I do know about this now is that Kollosal, Maple, and the financiers actually met in California with Kickstarter themselves. Kickstarter explained some things to them. Travis Chance, who's the president of Kollosal Games, or one of the principals there, he stated in a public statement that they had made some, quote, technical mistakes in the campaigns, but will be relaunching very soon their campaigns, and that they will now have a better chance to work more closely with Kickstarter, because now they have a personal relationship with the people at Kickstarter. So that's obviously a good spin that they're putting at the end of it. But in general, it was very interesting and weird news for people who do run multiple Kickstarters. And certainly between Stronghold Games and Indie Boards and Cards, we're going to be doing multiple Kickstarters. So now we have to see and make sure that we comply with every one of the rules that they have, and not have these issues. So I think the industry, those who do use Kickstarter, looked at this as like, wow, okay, we got to be careful here. We don't want to show suspension of a Kickstarter. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, correct. This is exactly, it looks like the Kickstarter trying to protect the backers, and when they see the company has a couple of Kickstarters, and it is look very, very strange. We had in Poland situations when one of the company had couple of our local Kickstarters. It is called Wspieram To, and these Kickstarter campaigns were not fulfilled, and they were starting the next one and the next one, and at some point this Polish site said, okay, you can no longer do another campaign until you fulfill the previous ones, because it's just gathering money and not fulfilling the stuff. So I guess it may be the same situation that the Kickstarter said, let's fulfill what you already did, and then let's move to the next Kickstarter. But it is for me it's interesting in the way that it is the first time, and we record this podcast like many years already. It is the first time when we discuss situation when Kickstarter reacted and stopped the campaign. So this is either some very accidental thing, either this is a change of the policy of the Kickstarter. We'll see in the future if it will happen again and again. That means it is a new policy, or it was just an accident.
Yeah, we have to be Kickstarter. Yes, Kickstarter is obviously trying to protect what they do. They're trying to protect people who do bring money there. But at the same time, just by definition, right? Like, we're not like movie producers where we're raising millions of dollars and then we're going to go out and spend 2 years to make a movie, right? We produce games, and we produce games on a continuous cycle. So those who use Kickstarter will produce several games during a given year, and they will use Kickstarter several times during a year, and they may not fulfill one before they have to start, and they want to start. So it's a very strange situation, and I think that we're gonna have to see how this does play out, and it could definitely have an impact on people who do Kickstarters. Now, I think that it's also very possible that bigger, more established companies won't have an issue. Like Indie Boards and Cards has done 50 Kickstarters, so they're not. We're not going to have an issue. I don't think. Simon, right? Yeah, Simon. How is it possible? They've raised tens of millions of dollars on Kickstarter. I can't imagine that all of a sudden Kickstarter is going to say, "Well, no, you can't. You got to fulfill these 3 before we give you another one." That doesn't make sense. Maybe it was a smaller company, and they did not understand the entire situation. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But it definitely brought a lot of people's attention, a lot of publishers' attention immediately to, okay, make sure we do everything right on Kickstarter. So we have some interesting news from Hobby Games. During 2018, Hobby Games sales totaled $1.5 billion during 2018. The collectible games declined, especially at mass market, and that pulled down the category. So $1.5 billion was down 3% versus a year ago. These are according to estimates by ICV2. And this is, by the way, North American sales, US and Canada. Decline was driven by a 14% decline in the collectible games category, which is very interesting. It's the only category that was down, but since collectible games, Magic, right, is so big in that category, and any change there could bring down the rest of the category. Growth rates in the other categories range from flat, hobby, card, and dice games, they were essentially 0%, to an 18% increase in role-playing games. Hobby board games is the second largest category, and it grew 7%. So our category, 7% growth from $345 million in 2017 to $370 million in 2018. So good news, bad news. Ignacy, what do you think before I give any opinion here?
I would say that these numbers sort of confirm what we see and what we talk about in the podcast. Like in a couple of past months, we were discussing changes that Wizard of the Coast does with the Magic of the Gathering. Like they changed the prices for the tournaments, like they changed distribution, they were changing the prices on Amazon.com.
Amazon.
Like, you can see, stop laughing at me. So they were changing, so they were clearly fighting and struggling with sales of the Magic the Gathering. And we see the collectible games go down. We see the absolute growth of the role-playing games everywhere. Like big celebrities from TV play role-playing games. We have new editions of big games like Call of Cthulhu. Dungeons & Dragons is absolutely rocking right now worldwide, everywhere, in Poland, in Europe, in America. So basically the narration we are building here in the podcast every single week, and these numbers match. Like it all makes sense, and it makes me happy. Like I want to see hobby board games growing. I want to see role-playing games because I love them growing, and I'm not a huge fan of Magic the Gathering per se. So like I don't see a problem if the market changes a little bit and goes more into the Catan and Ticket to Ride and less into the trading card games. So for me, thumbs up.
Yep. Agreed on all accounts. It's still showing that our hobby board games are doing well, where other categories might struggle a little bit here and there. So we also have Steve Jackson posting his annual report. Steve Jackson Games, we should really say, who the president of the company is Steve Jackson himself, and Steve Jackson Games sales decline for the 4th year, so not good news for him, for the company. Steve Jackson Games sales declined roughly $200,000, so a small amount, to $5.3 million in 2018. It's a 4th year of sales declines. The company announced this in their report to stakeholders. Now, just as a note to everybody, Steve Jackson Games is a privately held company. Steve Jackson himself is the sole owner of the company, yet for many, many, many years, he has a report to stakeholders, and the stakeholders in this case are just gamers because he owns the company. And he goes through and he tells you all about the numbers at his company. Now, Ignacy doesn't tell how much Portal Games is making. Stephen Bonacore doesn't tell you how much Stronghold Games and Indie Game Studios is making. That's confidential information. But Steve has always been a very open guy, and he wants to talk about it. He's even demystifying things even more than we are. So, that's wonderful. I can't say that we're going to ever be able to do such a thing, but that's the reason why we have these numbers, and it's very interesting. He mentions that market conditions are remaining tough, similar to what he described last year. He said things got worse through 2018 as fewer and fewer copies of new titles were sold into distribution. This is an industry-wide issue where we've discussed the problem with several of our friends, and most of us are watching as demand for new games continues to drop. So yeah, Ignacy, you and I have touched on this, and we're definitely seeing this, that our print runs are needing to get smaller because any given single new game is having a problem getting out, getting noticed over these, hundreds, thousands of games that are being really produced every year. So we do have an industry problem here, where a new game is having a difficulty shining amongst all of these unless it gets that buzz, unless you get that grab, unless you do something completely new and amazing like you've done with Detective and things like that. So what do you think? Is this going to be something we're all gonna have problems with here?
Yes, I'm sad, but I think this is what's going to happen this year. It was my prediction that we will see some problems in the industry. I was talking about this for a couple of years right now, that there was so many games released and the attention span of the gamers is so short these days. And even if you have a successful release, then you do a reprint and it is too late because attention is in a different place. Even here Steve Jackson Games in this press release discussing Munchkin collectible card game, and they say that they sold out the first print run, and yet there were the problems because of the reprint and because of the second base corset, etc., etc. So we see the industry is struggling right now. And it will continue for some time, hopefully not very long. I don't know if you read a couple of days ago, John Zinzer from AIG wrote a very open blog post about changing policy for AIG, and they are going to print and release less games than they used to, and they will put more care for the marketing and promotion of these titles. Like for me, it is old news. Like I was releasing 2 or 3 games per year for many years, and yes, we will see some of the companies will have to adjust, some will struggle. We will see.
So that brings us to our next story. You just mentioned it, that John Zinzer, who is the CEO of Alderac Entertainment, most commonly known as AEG to fans out there, He now has a blog, so he's also helping do things like demystifying the industry, like we do here. And his recent blog post was exactly that. He says that AEG will publish fewer new games. And John basically said he vows to, quote, publish fewer new games. The company has gone from as many as 20 new games a year down to 5 or 6 by design in response to market conditions. Exactly what Steve Jackson Games has reported, exactly what you and I have been talking about. And he's requiring himself and his team to manage his cash flow. And there could be some changes in the company. That doesn't sound particularly good, but all of these things point to the same ideas that what we've been talking about. He says, quote, "It is a great time to be making games, maybe the best ever. It is also the most challenging time to be making games that I can remember." And that memory isn't short, as his post was written in AEG's 27th year. So that's pretty amazing. So that's even longer than you've been in the hobby, right? In making games.
Yes, me as a young dude, I was playing role-playing games, dude. And I already heard about AIG here in Poland, and I bought their books, Legend of the Five Rings and 7th Sea. So I was this young dude being already fan of John Zinsser work.
Yep. I remember Legend of the Five Rings very well. It was a great collectible game, which is no longer in their catalog anymore. They sold the rights to the game, but to FFG a while ago.
Yes, I'm looking at the time. We already speak for almost half an hour. I wonder if we do 2, 3, or 4 news, and we just don't do questions today. Like, just let's make it a news episode, because we have so many news in the line in the and maybe we can do just a news segment today.
A news day only. We did have a lot of news. Did you see all that? And you know what? I didn't even put all of the news in here that I've gotten. I've got a bunch of new items that I still have not even put in here yet. So, all right, we're going to continue going. And our next one is about a good friend, Ruby Nikolapopoulou. I can never pronounce her last name. How do you pronounce her last name? It's not Paul. It's Greek, right? Nikolapopoulou. But Ruby's a good friend, and she was with Simon for a while, and now she's just she was his Asmodee, and then she went to Simon, and now she's back at ANA. She's back at Asmodee North America. Great person, really good at marketing. So Ruby has joined Asmodee North American Distribution as head of marketing, where she is building a new team and will oversee marketing strategies and operations, the company announced. Now, notice, by the way, specifically this says Asmodee North America Distribution. I'll get back to that in a moment. This represents a return of sorts, because Ruby spent 7 years as marketing director at Asmodee US Editions, ending in 2016 when management was consolidated with Fantasy Flight Games and Days of Wonder. Most recently, Ruby was at Simon, where she was director of marketing from 2016 until last summer. Prior to her 10 years in the games industry, she had another 15 years in business development and marketing for Sony. So as you can see, some of the bigger, more established companies are definitely hiring. This is good for everybody out there who is considering coming in to the industry. Keep your eyes and ears out and look to those bigger companies to see where they're making their moves, and see if you want to come in. Now, I'm going to get back to this. So congratulations to Ruby, by the way. She's a very, very lovely person. I know her well. Asmodee North America Distribution is the name of the company, and I continue to harp on that because Asmodee in North America is not a distributor per se. They are obviously a publisher, and they are distributed exclusively through Alliance. They have recently mentioned that they had a joint statement with Simon to exclusively distribute Simon's games in North America. So these are very interesting words and ways that they're doing things, and I believe that we've already spoken about this, that it certainly looks like Asmodee will become a full-fledged distributor in North America, probably when their contract runs out with Alliance. And I have no knowledge as to when that is, but you can probably assume that's within the next 2 years.
And this is the moment when Ignacy get additional 10 points on prediction, because he predicted that in 2017. Thank you so much.
You don't get any points unless it happened in the year you made the prediction.
It will happen.
That's great. That's great stuff. All right, what do we have next? Is this the next one? Is it my Wizards of the Coast? Yes, it is. Wizards of the Coast opens a studio in Austin, Texas. Hey, Austin, Texas is where Steve Jackson Games is located. It's where Fireside Games is located. So there's a bunch of companies out there. Hey, is it also where Plaid Hat Games is? Don't they have people in Austin? I'm trying to remember. I think so. Wizards of the Coast announced it will open a new subsidiary studio in Austin, Texas. And this will be led by James Olin. Olin, who spent 23 years working for BioWare and Electronic Arts on Dungeons & Dragons video games, including Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights, as well as best-selling Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, etc. So this, we're extremely excited, it says, quote, we're extremely excited to have someone like James join the team at such a critical time in Wizards' evolution, said Chris Cox, the president of Wizards of the Coast. James brings experience in creative direction and studio leadership that will prove important, as well as we look forward to developing compelling new experiences to engage gamers all over the world. So the funny thing is, it doesn't exactly say what the studio is going to do. Is the studio a electronic studio?
No. As far as I can see, they say they will create original board games outside IPs that they are known for. So outside Magic the Gathering, outside of Dungeons and Dragons, they will look for other IPs to bring games. This is what I understand from this press release, which is very confusing for me because their biggest brand is Magic the Gathering. Their biggest brand is Dungeons and Dragons. So I would rather go to bring more board games, to bring more books, to bring more stuff in these amazing brands, and looking to create the new content and not use these amazing IPs. It's a surprise for me, so we have to wait a couple of more months to see what Mr. James will bring. Either it will be huge surprise for us, either, well, I don't know, confusing.
As you said, he's going to be focusing on original IPs, not using those core IPs of Magic.
Why would you do that? Yes, I'm surprised.
Why is a good question. I could only guess that they want to continue to expand into new things. Maybe there'll be other versions of fantasy that they bring up. You know, it is a good question.
What we see in our industry, of course, we are smaller. Our companies are smaller than Wizards of the Coast, but you can see what amazing did first Z-Man, then Asmodee with Pandemic. So they had a Pandemic, the board game, and then there was Pandemic Lab, Pandemic Cure, Pandemic Legacy, and they were building this brand, creating from nothing, created an amazing brand. Pandemic line. I'm in a much smaller scale, doing the same with the Imperial Settlers. I have Imperial Settlers Roll and Ride, Kingdoms of the North. So like I'm trying to build these brands, and here we have the press announcement that says we have amazing brands, Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, but we are going to create a different content. Like I don't understand.
Right? No, it is very interesting. So we'll wait about a few months, 6 months, a year, and we'll see what comes out of that new studio.
Yep.
So into the bigger, much bigger, even not part of the hobby industry, but Hasbro Gaming reports that their revenues. Now this is a very, very, very large publicly traded company. Hasbro Gaming revenues are up 20% in the first quarter. WotC digital revenues were $58 million in 2018. So Hasbro revenues grew 20%. Wizards of the Coast, $58 million in revenue. By the broadest measure, Hasbro Gaming revenues were $243.4 million in the first quarter, up from $203 million from the year before. So that's a nice big improvement in their gaming. And that includes $135 million in franchise brands, Magic the Gathering and Monopoly are the two that they mentioned there, which is kind of interesting. So they're lumping, of course, all of their gaming, both their mass market gaming and their big brand, the biggest of all, Magic the Gathering.
I'd like to make a test if Hasbro is listening to our podcast. I'd like to say I hate Monopoly.
Well, it's a terrible game. Of course it is. I don't think they're going to get too mad about hobby gamers saying such a thing. It's not a game for the 21st century. It's simple as that.
It's not.
It's not. But we make fun of it so much. But it's the single most known thing of all gamers in the world. We can all point to it and talk about it and have the same frame of reference about that game, right? That's the one thing that's great about monopoly. We all know it. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, but yes, but I'm a serious note. Like each time I go to the mass market store and I see these stacks of Monopoly, and I see these people who buy this Monopoly for their kids, and I think like, if this is a Catan, these kids would have so much better time. And I'm pissed off every time I see Monopoly. Like, this is something bad in my head. Like, I'm getting furious each time I'm going to mall. So. Oh, I will burn them all. And now either lawyers from Hasbro will kill us or not.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. Well, so one of the things that they actually wrote in their article, their press release about their earnings was that about that Wizards of the Coast digital gaming revenues. They never broke that out before. So that's interesting that they finally did a breakout of that one, $58 million for all of 2018. And that's a fairly big number for digital for Wizards of the Coast, which we think of as physical books and cards, of course. And overall, Hasbro had a good quarter of sales and profits, a positive turnaround after a tough fourth quarter. Global first quarter revenues were up 2%, and profits were $26.7 million versus $121.5 million loss in the first quarter of 2018. So things are going well at Hasbro, who obviously is so much bigger than us, than anything. And also in the realm of the huge companies, Mattel sales were down 2% while their margins increased. So last week, Mattel reported first quarter net sales were down 3% for the first quarter of 2019 versus the prior year. Gross sales were also down 2%. Gross margins increased to 34.8% versus 30.9%. So essentially what they're doing is they're reducing their costs to make up for a decrease in the total revenue. So that's one way companies can remain very profitable. If their revenues go down, you reduce your costs, and then hopefully you continue to do well.
I see the second paragraph is like, it looks like a Death Star. Like, this program was responsible for reduction of 2,200 employees in the summer. Like, they fired 2,000 people.
It said the increase was primarily driven by savings from their, quote, structural simplification program. That is
pure evil.
That is a pure evil thing. That is definitely a way of getting rid of people. That's what that means. They're responsible for the reduction of 2,200 employees in the summer of 2018. That's a huge number of headcount reduction, and that's where they saved it.
If they listen to our podcast, they will do reduction on us as well.
So you can see that. So Mattel is a struggling big company on some level, where Hasbro seems to be fighting it out. In both cases, they mentioned that Toys R Us was played into some of these problems, because when Toys R Us went bankrupt, they had to write off some of as bad debt. So they send product to Toys R Us. Toys R Us owes them money, but Toys R Us couldn't pay because they went bankrupt. So they mention here that was one of the reasons why their revenue was down.
That I know that you are more dedicated to this business press releases and these numbers, but when I read the press release that says we earn more money, we fired 2,000 people.
It's not a good one.
This is the worst press release ever.
So Ignacy is telling me we got to go to the next episode. He's writing it right here in the show notes. I love it. So
final scoring. That's what you were looking for.
Final scoring. Let's find out what's happening at Portal Games and Stronghold Games.
All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll get back to your questions next week. So we did a lot of news this week because we had so much stuff going on in the industry. Make sure you post questions in our guild on Board Game Geek. Please, it's a very important thing for you to do. We've got lots of questions there now, but we can always use more interesting ones from you. Our Facebook page, we have a separate one just for the podcast, Board Games Insider, and of course both companies, /Stronghold Games and /Portal Publishing on Facebook. The company website, strongholdgames.com, portalgames.pl, and portalgamesus.com. That's Portal's new US-based website. Talk to Ignacy directly, and to Steven. It's @ChevyCheck on Twitter and @Stronghold Games on Twitter. Instagram @Stronghold Games and @ChevyCheck as well. YouTube, we both have YouTube channels. Check us out there. Upcoming conventions, Geekway to the West coming up very soon, as well as BGG Spring, and then UK Games Expo. I have some news about that in about 1 second. So the convention season's in full swing. Everybody share this podcast with your friends. Make sure they find out about it. Here's the news that we like to give a little bit of stuff here. This is sad news. I know that I've been saying that I'm going to be coming to the UK for UK Games Expo. We've had to decide not to make the trip. We just didn't plan enough. Looks like Stronghold Games and Indie Boards and Cards will still have a presence there because we still have a booth, but we're getting people to run that booth for us and sell our games and demo our games. So check us out over there. I apologize that we're not actually physically going to make it as well. And Ignacy, you can't. Anybody who was going to bring me a beer there, they could give it to you, and then you can share it, maybe give it to Mary, right? Because Mary likes beer.
Say it once again. If you have any beer for Steven, don't worry. You can bring it to Portal Games booth, and I will take it and bring it to my wife, Mary. So we appreciate your love for Steven, and I will bring your love to my wife.
I insist on pictures of Mary with the bottles and the cans of beer that get brought to you. How's that?
Yes, I confirm that it might be done. Yes.
And I have one more kind of news thing to mention here, something newsworthy, I guess. So on our guild there on Board Game Geek, that we have 950 members, which is makes it one of the largest podcast guilds out there. And I just happened to notice that number. And just a couple of spaces below us is Scott Nicholson's Board Games with Scott. Do you remember Board Games with Scott? He was one of the original podcasters and videocasters in the early days, right?
It was era before Tom Vassell. He was the Tom Vassell of the industry before Tom Vassell was Tom Vassell of the industry.
That's right. It was before. He did some work during that period of time, but Scott left.
Yes, I was watching his videos. I was living in Poland. I had no clue about the board games, and all I was learning back then was watching his videos. Very funny. I remember his bird and lots of energy. And then we all discovered Tom Vassell and all new modern reviewers. But this is before that.
That's right. So Scott left doing Board Games with Scott and doing reviews and things like that. But his guild on Board Game Geek has 951 members. They've got one more member than us. And I just checked the last post. The last time somebody actually wrote something in the guild was in 2011. So we have a nice active guild, but he's got one more member. So everybody out there, if you're not a member of the guild, I can't imagine that. So become a member of our guild, and then you'll be able to post some things in the guild and stuff like that. So please do that. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll see you hopefully within another week. Bye-bye now.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Board Games Insider with Ignacy Chevicek and Steven Bonacore. Board Games Insider has been made possible by you, our listeners and hobby board game enthusiasts. Ignacy and Steven thank you greatly for your support of their companies and the hobby board game industry. Follow both Portal Games and Stronghold Games on Twitter, like both companies on Facebook, and sign up for their newsletters on portalgames.pl and strongholdgames.com. Please join us next time on Board Games Insider.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network, the home of smart people, insightful board gaming commentary, and Steven Bonacore. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com.